Yeah.
I'll have to
Oh,
get back
hang
with-
on one second. Let me mute.
The schoolhouse is muted, just so everybody knows.
Well, we'll start in a sec. Thank you.
Guys, can you unmute? Thank you.
You hear me, Liz? I think you just have to have these a little closer.
Now I can hear you. Thanks.
Try to keep that close. Okay, good morning. Trails and Paths Committee, February 15th. It is 9:03 a.m. We have a quorum and we'll call the meeting to order. Good morning, everyone. Okay, so our first item is oral communications for items that are not on the agenda. This is the time when is Liz the only one connected, Howard? We only have one person connected.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Okay, well, since we have no public members here, this is the time when the public would have been able to weigh in on items that are not on our agenda. Since we don't have any public here and there's no public online, I guess we don't have to do that. Let's move on to item 3, approval of minutes for November 16th, 2022. These were attached to the packet. If anybody has any edits, modifications, changes, deletions, improvements, now is the time to speak up.
Do I have to push something or?
No, just get it close.
It is on old business. C. Dave Evans is the name of the gentleman who helped us. He's listed as Dale. Portola Valley Trail Map Update. Just need to correct his first name from Dale to Dave.
Great, thank you, Fred. Any other comments, changes, deletions, edits, improvements, rejections on our agenda? Oh, on the minutes. So those minutes should said today for the. Okay. No worries. The little things, these are all okay. I'm not too worried about
At the time, our next meeting was.
Well, it wasn't
Not today,
November, it was
it was-
December. So you're right.
them. Yeah, so
I know, but this was, it said we were having a meeting the day after we had the meeting. You're right.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. We'll make sure we capture that correctly, our next meeting in April. Okay, wonderful. No other changes? Then I'll take a motion to approve the minutes as amended. Fred moves. And all in favor, just raise your hand. We won't do a roll call. Okay, great. Passes as amended. Thank you, Liz, for weighing in there. Okay, election of officers. Woo-hoo.
Congratulations.
No. So as I mentioned last time, actually I did this 2 years ago. I said I would not accept the nomination for chair and I did. And but this year I'm not going to. I've got too much work to do on the school board. However, I believe it's healthy for committees to rotate their chairs periodically. I think for me, I think I've been doing it 3 years now. It takes a good year to get kind of in the groove, right? So that you're working efficiently. So I don't see this thing as rotating every year, but over a certain amount of time, I think it's good for the chair to be rotated. And so to that end, let's go ahead and take a motion for Chair of Trails and Paths Committee for the calendar year 2023.
Ask the question.
You may, of course.
My question is, are there any ongoing issues that it would be pertinent for you to stay in that position, like a couple more months or 3 more months, and then change? Is that a possibility? Or, because I know we're
Well,
working.
I don't know that that's a possibility. Generally, we've always scheduled elections in January. We didn't have a January meeting. I think the town's expecting us to schedule elections today. I'm going to still be on the committee. So there, yeah, I've got my hands on all kinds of stuff, right? But I don't see that really changing. And to the extent I can transfer any of that knowledge to whoever would be the new chair, I'll be happy to do that. But I plan on staying on the Stanford Faculty Housing Subcommittee with Joe and Fred. And if I have more time, I might join one of the other subcommittees. So Joe.
I would like to nominate Barb Epstein as chair of our committee.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Barb, you can accept that nomination.
Fred needs to be the chair.
Who?
Fred.
We have a nomination for Fred. Okay. So, but do you accept your nomination? Would you like votes or not? Okay, so you do not accept your nomination. Okay, so we have a motion for Fred. Any other motions for chair? Howard, we can't pick Howard. Okay, I will second the motion for Fred to be chair. And let's go ahead and since we only have one person, let's take a vote. It doesn't really matter, but all in favor?
Okay.
Congratulations, Fred.
Thank you.
And thank you, Fred.
Thank you,
Yes.
thank you.
And technically you are the chair now, so you should be running the meeting.
All right, out of the chair.
Yeah, literally the chair, yeah, the middle chair. I think this is the only time I've gotten to sit in the middle chair. Because
Well,
we went
I-
into COVID right when I became,
I think you ought to stay there for the rest of the.
I'll be happy to run through this meeting, but I think just for official purposes, you should call for any motions.
Okay.
And adjourn the meeting, just to make sure that's done properly. Okay, great. So let's go ahead and take motions for vice chair. Any motions for vice chair?
I nominate you if you would do it.
I would accept the motion for vice chair.
I will second that motion.
Okay, second. Do we have any other motions for vice chair? Alex is not here and Ellie is not here, but neither of them indicated they were interested in the position. They actually, I'll go into that just a little bit. I learned from the town clerk that even though you're not present, you can still vote for these kinds of things. However, I've left that out so we don't complicate things. So we won't be counting their votes today. However, if we get into some kind of tie or something like that, we could always fall back to Alex and Ellie. So that said, any other motions for vice chair?
Okay, I would nominate Liz. I'm not sure if she's interested, but would be the
Great.
only other.
Liz, would you accept the nomination?
Yes,
Okay, great.
I would second.
Lovely. So we have two candidates for vice chair. Any other nominations? Susan? Joe? Joe's very good at this stuff. It's good to see everybody. Okay, so let's take a vote then. Let's all in favor of me being vice chair, raise your hand. And 1, 2, 3, 4. All in favor of Liz, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3. Okay, the motion's carried for Gary to be vice chair. Let's take a motion for secretary. I move that Liz Babb be secretary for calendar year 2023. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
We have a second.
I'll second that emotion.
Liz, will you accept that?
Yeah, Liz, would you
That's the
accept
one.
that nomination? We went really quickly there.
Yes,
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Are there any other nominations for secretary? I did not get a chance to talk to Ellie. I don't know if she would be interested in doing the job or not.
So I did get an email from Ellie, and that's not that I don't think you would also be an excellent vice chair, Liz, which you're gonna hopefully get your chance. But she had indicated that she thought you would be an excellent secretary, and so that was her wish too. And she's been secretary for
For a long time,
10 years.
Ever.
forever, right? Well, thank you for sharing that. That's good to know. So we will not include Ellie in as a nomination. So we have one nomination. Any other nominations for secretary? I don't see any. We have a second. Second was you, Fred? I'm sorry, who seconded?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and take a vote. All in favor of Liz Babb, Secretary 2023. It's unanimous.
So-
Liz Babb, is that what I said?
is someone else though taking notes today?
Yes, Teresa is taking notes today.
Great, okay, thank you.
Teresa's in the audience, Liz. You can't see her.
Thank you, Teresa.
Liz, did you vote? We need it for the record. Did you vote for yourself or secretary?
Yes, I will vote for myself.
Okay, very good. We just
Thank
got to capture it in the record. Liz, you are now secretary, so you have the option of starting to take the minutes right now if you want, or you can defer that to Teresa, whatever you would like.
I have a hard stop at 11, so, or 10 your time, so I would prefer if Teresa continued for today.
Fair
I would
enough.
be happy though to, edit those, Teresa, or receive them later. Of course, I can watch the recording to make sure that the last part that I miss, if any, is correct. So I'd be happy to help edit them.
Great, wonderful. Thank you. All right, that's our election of officers. Congratulations, everyone. Old business, let's get right into it. Trail conditions, work and budget for November 2022 through January 2023. Howard.
Okay, thank you. It's been some time, so I'm going to go over November, December, and January. I noticed that the maps weren't in there for those months since we canceled those meetings, so I'll have those in the next months. But I'm going to go over the work. So in November, we have, and once again, we break down hours to staff hours and then contract hours. So in November, we had 25 hours of staff hours, 0 hours of contract hours. Mainly was clearing fallen trees at 3 locations, cleared water bars on Arroyo and Bay Laurel. And also we installed the trail post on Cherokee as discussed at the committee level for the Nichols property. So now that those trails are separated now for equestrian and then pedestrian.
The signs at both ends were done?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you.
And those were custom signs that we did. See, we also walked with Denise Gilbert, the Toyon Trail at that time and with the Trail Center. And we went into basically a volunteer project, but we never met on that. But they did, and I'll report on that later because they finished the work. It was delayed a couple of times. They announced it through the town's website and the news. I don't know how many of town volunteers ended up going, but we are going to inspect the work in the next couple of weeks here. From what I understand, it's nice. So that is the November report. And then now I will go. Is there any
Real
questions?
quick on that. So Denise Gilbert did send me an email. It was too late to get into our package, so I will forward that email to Fred for inclusion in next month's package. But it talks about what they did, what they accomplished, challenges they had, and so on. So we can include that for our next meeting.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
And me and Scott walked the whole entire route even before they started work and agreed on what work was going to be done and needed to be done. So
Any other November questions for Howard?
Well, no, Howard's not done.
It's a November question. So
yeah.
we're going to December now.
So yeah, the November is basically fallen trees on in November it was fallen trees on Quilter, Bay Laurel, and Arroyo and Eagle Trail. And the rest was just clearing water bars. We did do some clearing some duff on the Hillbrook Trail, mostly the eucalyptus debris. That's something that always comes down.
I have something for December. If you're not done.
So for December, we did 16 staff hours, 24 contract hours for a total of 40 hours. Majority of it was clearing water bars and more eucalyptus debris also. So you have a question, Joe?
Yeah. In December, I saw on the back of one of your trucks, a trail sign that had been knocked down. It was at Mapache and Cervantes. I haven't seen that put back up. I'm pretty sure it's a town, not Westridge's sign.
I'll have to double check into that. Did the sign have a bright green sign on? Did the post have a bright
was-
green sign on it?
I don't believe so. When I looked at it, I wanted to determine is it town or Westridge, and it was town when I looked at it. But I don't know if it had a green thing.
So there was an accident there, right? A tree fell down and a car up going into I guess that would be the northwest corner of the intersection. Maybe that'd be the southwest corner of the intersection where the sign would have been. So if it was a result of that accident, then that's a town sign.
Yeah. So we have multiple signs down from
Okay.
from January. So we're gonna get to them once we once I get into December. I mean, after December, January was almost all storm related stuff. And I'll get to that too.
Okay, any other questions for December? No, move on, January?
So, and just on to December, I just slowly go over that, we cleared water bars on Quilter, Alpine, Blue Oak, Old Spanish, Portola, Sequoia, all those things. It was basically pre-storm work. So just to also let everyone know this, we do, regardless of what's in here, we do pre-storm work on almost all the streets and all the trails in October. We start in October. So January rolls around and you probably already know, holiday week, there was a major storm that came through. So all the focus really was on storm recovery, storm prep, and recovery again for all the storms. And mainly we were focusing on the streets and keeping the streets open and evacuation routes. So almost all the efforts went into that. I mean, at that time, I think after the biggest storm, we gave away 5,000 sandbags and almost $6,000 worth of sand. I don't think I've seen sand disappear that fast before, but it was loads and loads of dump trucks of sand. The main focus was basically all of our crews and contractor crews and fire mitigation crews on the roads in the storm drainage system to make sure it's basically recovered and fully functional during the storm. That was the main thing. And then we know that there were some slides and fallen trees on the trails. And after we took care of those things, we are slowly moving towards the trails now. So you've probably seen, there were something like 12 trees down and Scott's already cleared, I think, more than half of them already. There are some slides such as on Shady Trail that we're looking at on permanent recovery, what we're going to do. For the time being right now, we've widened the trail on one side. We widened it, basically removed the brush as you're going uphill on the right-hand side. So going to explore how we're going to address that. So is it wider than the required width of a trail? Yes. Is it ideal?
Does it go outside of the easement?
Actually, we have enough easement
We have
between
enough
the two fences I think the easement was 15
Because
feet.
there was a road at one point, right?
Yeah.
So that, that's been problematic forever in there. That ditch, the property owners do not maintain it. It gets clogged. We went in there before and dug it out. But when you get a big event like this, it's just not built to keep the water in the ditch. And so it overflows and then floods straight over the tread of the trail and just destroys that section, where it was nice DG, and that's all gone now.
So we'll look, there's that, that's a work in progress. We'll have to
Yeah, we're gonna have
analyze
to
and
figure that out.
what we're gonna do. But I mean, overall, on the roads, we didn't have any main roads shut down for an extended, we had some fallen trees across roads, but those were cleared right away. Mainly Upper Alpine. So we did okay. I mean, we had a lot of staff working on it. I do want to give props to Bob Boyle, who really helped us out a lot. I mean, the guy, I think he volunteered 40 hours at night, driving around checking your storm drains. And we're figuring out ways to get more recruits to do that and more people to do that too. We can get committee members just in general during big storms because we don't have an official night crew. We just call people in. So to help check the storm drains in front of their homes. And during the whole entire time we were coordinating with the state and county, there is some reimbursements because they declared it a state of emergency. So there is some reimbursements for our costs also. So I mentioned the staff, Public Works Committee, contractors, and we also have a fire mitigation crew that we pay for the clearing the right of way for us. And so they helped out too. So, during the time, just to give you an idea, I think since the Christmas, we had like 99 requests through PV Connect. So we're slowly working through those things. And once again, I just want to assure you that we do check our storm drains because there were some questions about it. Before storms, during storms, and after storms. We have between 400 and 500 catch basins in town. Let's see. I think we'll go to the map that everyone has in your packet for February. And you'll see 12 hours worked in January. And once again, that's reflective of really concentrating on the roadways and storm drain system first. And in addition to the storms, now after we fix the roads and the drainage system, we get calls from residents too, because it affected their properties a lot too. So we're handling calls from residents about storm drainage. So going on to the February work, you can see that, we worked on the Eagle Trail. We cleared fallen trees on the Hay Forks and Larry Lane. We put up some barricades and addressed fallen trees. Really, overall, I think we did okay. So, is there? I'm going to jump into some other public works updates because I wanted to mention to inform the Trails Committee. Is there any concern or questions about the work so far?
Can I just say you guys did a phenomenal job in those storms, keeping the roads clear. I'm amazed walking around, seeing all the downed trees and that you guys had the roads cleared, which is incredible. And even, some of the disastrous trails you did a good job on. And I just have one question, and that relates to Shady Trail. I have actually two questions. And one is it safe to walk that area where so much of it is falling into the creek? I don't know that is safe for horses. I gotta say, it's pretty narrow. I don't even know if people should be walking. Has an engineer looked at that? Just so we're sure.
Yeah, we're going to have our geologist look at it.
Okay,
So
great.
now there is 10 plus feet still left. So your trail standard is 4 to 5 feet. And we have, I don't know if you saw a couple, recently, but we've shaved off a lot of the brush on one side so you can go all the way to the right. And certainly on safety, I'll say that you go to the Blue Oaks, some of those trails are 2-3 feet wide and there's a steep drop on one side. So have I seen those conditions before? Yes. And we haven't closed the trail and I believe there's 10 plus feet before you even get to that spot. So, but we have a geologist looking at it because we're going to have to figure out some way to repair that.
Right.
It's a hard to get to spot.
Yeah, okay, thanks. And then my only other comment was Shady, because I know that it's kind of usable again, but there is a tree hanging low where there's been a tree hanging
Yes.
low problematically.
I saw it this morning.
Yeah, so that's not really, I'm assuming people who ride know they really can't be on that because it's too low for a horse. But if we're talking about leaving it there for a month or two, people are going to start pushing the envelope, I'm afraid.
I don't think so. I think we're catching up to things right now after the initial storms. And then also, the ground was so saturated after we went and looked at stuff, the trees just basically fell down
Exactly.
without any rain. It was just,
Leaning.
yeah.
Okay,
So
thanks, Howard.
if you could put that on PV Connect also to remind
You know
us.
what? I can never, as you know, I can never get Pinion and Shady, PV Connect will not go through ever. even Cervantes and Shawnee doesn't go through, everywhere that Fawn doesn't go through. And I don't know if it's Verizon, but I can never get onto PV Connect in that area ever. So
You
I
could
u-
just, maybe you could get on when you got home. That's what I have to do sometimes.
If you take a
I
photo,
take the picture and then when I get home, I submit it through PV Connect.
the photo
Okay.
should have the GPS on it.
Okay,
Because that's the key thing, right? Is
It
you wanna do
is,
it right there, so you get the
exactly.
exact location. We
right.
can, I can, or Liz can
Perfect.
help too.
Okay, thanks, you guys.
Yeah. So I think when you say PV Connect working, it's mainly if your cell phone's getting signal in those
Exactly.
areas. So it's probably not getting signal. So you probably have to find a desktop or when you get signal at home.
All right.
And I can help with that too. Just let me.
So as long as you mentioned a geologist, I drive by this every day and I've been meaning to write an email about it. This is a section of Westridge that's already slid. It's between 140 Westridge and 228. I don't know if you can picture it, but the trail is very, very high above the road. And I'm thinking it's probably okay for hikers. But again, I'm wondering if the weight of a horse might make it a little bit dangerous. And then it's a dangerous situation to begin with because it's so high. And if it's going to slide, you're going to be right onto the road. So I think, do you know what I'm talking?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah,
there. The
and don't
slide
you-
is down lower towards the road, but it's a very steep hillside and the trail's right up on top.
Right. And we're not thinking that it could keep on sliding at some point.
Yeah,
So,
very few people ride their horses. That's a Black Diamond horse trail, right? So very
Yeah,
few people
okay.
ride horses, but there are people who do. And
exactly. I
generally-
see her every day.
Generally, they know what they're doing, so they're not,
Okay.
I'm not gonna be too concerned about that. But from a geology point of view, that's a slide that happens almost every year we get a lot of rain, right? Right in there. And so I don't, it might be worthwhile having a geologist.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just wondering if the extra weight of a horse could trigger even more sliding. So
You never know. I
exactly.
mean, that's why we'd hire geologists.
Right.
I have a couple comments. You want to respond?
Well, yeah, I believe that section of trail is a Westridge Trail, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
So now.
But the slide is a town thing. It's in the road right away.
Yeah, actually, I have another report because we're doing street resurfacing. So I'm gonna let you know, that's the section we're doing. So
Oh,
I'm
okay.
gonna report on that next.
Oh,
after.
okay, great, great.
Can I just go to some random items?
Let me ask a couple questions first, Howard. So Shady Trail, I think it's borderline a all season trail now. There's some spots in there that are the ground, the base rock is washed away and now it's pure mud. And so are we still considering it a all season trail for equestrians? Or are we rethinking that?
If it was constructed as an all-season trail, then we should put it back as an all-season trail.
Okay, so we're gonna leave it open as an all season trail for right now.
I think it's okay to leave open.
Okay.
I think that with the rains, essentially February is supposed to be our wettest rains, wettest month. So we can open and close it due to weather conditions, but I think that the good news is that majority of the rain has passed. So I don't think unless there's a footing problem that we feel that there's for horses, we can close it.
I'm more worried about damage to the trail, right? But if you're gonna have to base rock it anyway, then it's probably a non-issue.
Yeah, we're gonna reassess it and basically go, okay, well, let's go up and it was AC grindings, but I think we're just gonna take base rock. And once it gets dry enough for heavy equipment to go on there, we plan to go out there and basically just fill in everything.
Okay.
But once again, it's still assessment,
And then I don't know if this is the right time to talk about it, but how is your budget holding up? Your budget goes from June to June, is that correct?
Yes,
So you're like right in the middle of your public works maintenance budget for the year, for the
yeah, so
fiscal year.
yes. So the bulk of the money will be spent this summer. So because we typically in the winter, pretty much from December, January, and February, those are the slower months because of storms. But once we can get equipment on there, then the CIP and the mowing starts once the rain stop, May, June, and July.
So you have budget for all of that, I guess is what I'm asking. You're not running out because you're doing so much extra work in December and November.
No, I don't think so. I don't have the budget numbers in front of me right now, but I can report back next time. But I believe there's ample budget because
Okay.
once again, the bulk of the budget is spent in the spring and
Spring.
summer.
Okay, good. Thank you. Please, any other questions for Howard?
My only other one was, when we do close trails, if there's a way for us to get notice out to the public. So there was a couple times, so the two examples are actually both on Toyon. When we closed it on a Friday for work, there was a sign, sandwich board style. But there was no indication of why or how long anywhere on either PV forum or on the website. There was no indication of what the closure was. And then when they did the trail work this past weekend, they put up caution tape, so Friday night before, before they did the work, which they effectively closed a section of the trail before it was supposed to be closed. And so I think maybe we can do some work to coordinate those closures and notify people so that, you know, people aren't there and they go out to the trail and then all of a sudden they find that it's closed. And in the case of the trail work, it actually wasn't closed. It wasn't closed, and yet there was still an indication that it was. So just more communication about the closures.
Yeah, that should have been done. I thought there was a message that sent out that Carrie sent out about the work. So I'll have to find out.
There may have been one that came in late on the first one that I was talking about. My recollection is it came in after it was actually reopened. The message that went out, I think, came out on a Saturday, and y'all had done the work on Friday, but so it was open. So just letting people know that they're closed in advance and so on and so forth. I think is.
Yeah, no, that's important. I thought, like, once again, I thought the message went out via, I don't think they post on PV Forum. I thought they posted on the town news.
Yeah, the weekly updates where it should go. Did we close Toyon or did the ranch close Toyon? We closed Toyon.
The first closure I'm talking about, that was a town sign.
That was a
They
town sign.
closed it. And then it must have been the ranch volunteers because it was yellow caution. It was nothing that looked like anything you guys use. It was a big piece of yellow caution tape at either end.
Yeah, so that was the,
Yeah, and we, once again, I mean, it is volunteer, and
Yeah.
there were deals with the ranch and the trail center. So if they didn't finish and they couldn't talk to anyone, they'd probably be just posted it closed themselves. I don't know yet, but I can get the facts. But I thought that something was sent out on the town news. on the first
Something
one.
was, yeah, we can double check that. I went to it and I couldn't, and I went back home and I couldn't find anything. So there was some period of time where the sandwich board was up and there was, at least I was unable to find why.
so there'll be a little bit of a delay. Obviously, if Scott or somebody closes the trail, he doesn't have direct access to Carrie. So it may take a day or something for him to get to probably you, and then you have to tell Carrie or something. I imagine a day or two delay is probably reasonable given the way the process works. With regards to the trail maintenance stuff, Debbie will do whatever I think we ask of her. And so she has asked for our opinions on things. And if we tell her, hey, Debbie, make sure that you send out a notification in advance of closing the trail and a notification when you're complete, its work is complete and you're reopening the trail.
Yeah, she sent out a notification for the closure on Saturday, but she actually closed the trail on Friday.
Yeah, so that's
That
not,
was-
yeah. So I can talk to Debbie and just let her know the procedure to email Carrie, and Carrie will put it, she won't even wait till Friday. If it's really important, she'll put it out that day. So for something like that, I think we can ask Carrie to put it out.
And I'll find out clarification of what happened. I do recall them, some information was pushed out, but it most likely got pushed out to the town via the town news versus PV Connect.
Versus
PV forum.
forum, yeah. We generally don't post things on forum that are official town business. At least committees don't. I think Carrie posts the actual link to the town weekly update on the forum, but
Yeah, I think one option, and we can follow up after the meeting, is just putting it up. We have a page, we have a trails page. And so like everywhere else, every other trail organization you go to, there's a trail that's closed, you can go to their page. I shouldn't say every other one. Midpen is the one that I'm thinking of. You go to Midpen, they have a list of their trail closures. And it'd be nice if we had something like that.
well, good segue in, and I won't stay long on this, but as part of our updates to the maps, we're going to redo our web page because right now trail closures go under the open space page. And so that was part of the plan with the new maps is to fix all that, so. we can all work on that.
I also heard, before we leave this topic, I heard a suggestion for on the ground signage or sandwich board. Could there be more information, like why it's closed and for how long? Especially if there's a
don't know that you
delay.
can- I don't know that we can ask Scott to make those kinds of decisions on his own. I think it would have to go through Howard. If you wanted reasons why the trail is closed.
Well, I'm sorry, I just heard the suggestion like that the public would need some information like that. And also for new people on the committee, can you guys use last names? Like, I don't know who Debbie is, Carrie is, Scott is.
Okay. Howard, what's Scott's last name?
Weber, Scott Weber,
And Denise Gilbert
Denise Gilbert, yeah.
is in the ranch. She used to be on the Trails Committee.
So I can explain, on work that the town controls, we've always never had a problem with this. We've always posted and provided information. It's just when another group is involved, they may have had some delays and basically decided to, there may have things they've decided themselves over the weekend because staff wasn't here and they just decided to do it. But I can, at the next meeting, I want to do a little deeper dive and find out what happened. And we'll go from there.
Great. Okay, any other questions for that, or should Howard move on?
I have a couple more things. So CIP items, if any, and I know the last CIP item we did was on Cervantes Trail. We spent some money there.
Sorry, what's CIP?
The Capital Improvement Program.
Okay,
So we did that work on Cervantes. So if there's any other input, just email me. I know we've been working on some code enforcement items, particularly private contractors and projects, building projects, parking on trails, modifying the trail, having effects on trails. Those things are, we send the code enforcement officer out, we send the building inspector out, but please do continue to call either me or the building department on those. And so we can log it into PV Connect and keep track of those things. But those things are ongoing. I can't tell you how many, I've dealt with each of you on different things, but those things are, and we do get them from the public too. Parking on trails, someone tilling up the trail. Those things do take time working with the private property homeowner and contractors to correct those things. And it is time.
Yeah, we
consuming.
actually have that on the agenda today to talk about, so we'll get into a little deeper once we
Okay.
get there.
And Howard, the CIP lists that we do every year, that we're gonna, of course, do it again this spring. That's due to you in early April, is that correct?
Yes, so
Okay,
we,
so I will be going out to everyone to collect their inputs
yeah.
as
and-
usual.
And that's a good topic to bring up. Our budget time starts May, April, and you'll get a notice from Cindy Rodas about it. But, just to get things thinking about what we want to do and so on.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that as well, budget priorities when we get there.
Let's see, fields, we've renovated a lot of the fields around us, renovations. We do them in the winter to take advantage of the rain that comes down naturally. A lot of people do them in the summer, which is the right time, but you use a lot of water but the seed germinates. Our risk is that everywhere we've been doing the last 10 years in the winter time, so we don't have to spend money on water, but we risk potentially seed not germinating. So, but this time we had some good results. So the fields are just a general message. The fields are opening in a couple of weeks here to baseball and soccer. So just to let everyone know, you're just going to start seeing a lot more people showing up to them as they reopen here in the next couple of weeks. Please continue to use PV Connect and encourage people to use PV Connect to send their maintenance issues and requests. And I think that's it. Overall, we haven't gotten major catastrophe issues or complaints. Majority of the complaints really have been site development or parking on trails or modification of trails related. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Howard. Any other questions for Howard?
Well, sorry.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Well, street resurfacing, we are focusing on Westridge this year. That's the plan, at least, between Westridge from Cervantes East all the way down to Alpine at Ford Field. that's the road section we're looking at. Typically, we do a lot of slurry seal, 15 or so roads, but this year, this is going to be more substantial than a slurry seal because of the condition of the road. It's going to be an asphalt, overlay and base repairs. So it's one road and shorter section. So, thank you.
Thank you, Howard. Okay, great. Let's move on to the Alpine Trail Safe Routes to School Subcommittee update. I don't know if there's that much of an update, but I keep this on the agenda every month until we finish this. So does anybody want to give us an update?
I mean, yeah, you're right. There's not much out of from the last meeting. There were just 2 items identified that needed updating. There was a crosswalk that was missing in the map that we showed. And then, the ongoing item that I know is part of the public map discussion as well was just that the last Safe Route to School map that we shared did show Hillbrook as a safe route to school. And that was just currently continuing to proceed off of the latest resolution. But we also know we've pulled documentation that is likely going to take that off of the public map as being multi-use. So, I mean, I think the only open question I see, and then we need to understand what next steps exist before taking it to the town council as well. But I think the open question for the committee and then possibly for the town council is, would it ever be considered if there's going to be a trail that's not on the public map, but we feel would be good for safe route to school, would the town consider allowing a trail just to be a safe route to school? So only during the school commute hours. And I think as I see it, that's kind of the one open question that I don't know if we want to talk about now or that's kind of tabled towards.
So Howard has given us direction that safe routes to school routes have to be on trails that already permit bikes full time. And so that was the overarching, I won't say just goal, but the conditions upon which we could suggest safe routes to school, they had to be on trails that already permitted bikes. So you're right, the documentation for Hillbrook does not permit bikes. That doesn't mean this is over. It just means that right now we can't put bikes on there.
So is that actually consistent with how all of the safe routes to school are? Because my understanding of safe routes to school actually puts kids on Alpine Trail where we have signs on the ground that say no bikes.
Alpine Trail is a work in progress. The way that Alpine Trail is supposed to work for safe routes to schools, they cross at the intersection to Roberts, and then they would go on the path all the way down to Golden Oak. Then they would cross to Alpine Hills in the crosswalk.
I'm actually referring the section between Portola Road and Indian Crossing.
So we've confirmed bikes are allowed on that section and they're allowed full time on that section. So that's
Okay.
that's an update to the map,
Okay,
to the trail map.
And
And I
probably
and
signage.
I imagine that carried on to safe routes to school.
we probably need signage updates too.
Yes, we need signage updates. There's also a small section where as we dive into the details, we're learning all kinds of things. So at Indian Crossing, where the kids cross Indian Crossing on Alpine and they get to the little corner there, they go up their own path to the school. And actually that's a trail, it's a dirt trail all on school property. However, there's a sidewalk there, right? And it's I gave Liz an update on this, Howard, I'll give you an update now. Because we were looking at that, our map shows it as a dash line, which means no bikes. However, every bike that goes into Ormondale rides up that sidewalk and the bike rack is right there next to that. So we're asking Dave to change that because I think it does allow bikes on that section. And then we're kind of stuck between there and where our current town map shows bikes are allowed on the loop through the ranch.
Yeah,
So we're trying to figure that part out right now. Now, the ranch's map did not address that. And Craig Sanders has given us feedback saying he believes it's a sidewalk and that bicycles should not be allowed on the sidewalk. Well, that's not consistent with what's going down at the corner by the school. And it's not consistent with our old trail map. And it's not consistent with what we know that Howard can place trails and road right-of-way easements at will. So we got to figure that part out next.
and then presumably when construction is done at Corte Madera, the crosswalk from Corte Madera Road into at that intersection with Alpine Road.
Into the back.
Yeah, bikes could just go onto school property right there once construction is done, right?
We're going through a whole process of looking at securing the campus. So that might change, but until we would make that change, you're right, it would.
Because
go
then you're
right in.
pushing kids.
Yeah, it's not an easy problem to solve, right?
Okay.
And it's going to take a while. So until then, yes, bikes can come in the back.
So we'll be talking with school board, Gary.
Yes, I'm ready. But we'll figure it out, right? We'll figure it out. But we do have to figure out the ranch Indian crossing issues. We're getting closer, but Howard, I know you probably don't have an update, right? We just talked about this yesterday, day before.
Yeah, I don't have an update since.
So, yeah, so that's kind of, you're right, Jacqueline, where the actual town trail map is hanging up the Safe Routes to School map a little bit. Salsa Trail, do you have an update on my Salsa easement?
No, I have to still look into that.
So a little update on Salsa Trail, the section of Salsa Trail between Georgia Lane and Salsa Drive is in conflict, right? It shows bikes on the signs, but not on the map. I think the resolution allows it. So we've been digging into the easements and we got half of the trail. We slapped the table on half of the trail for bikes, right, Howard? And then the other half of the trail, we found the actual easement from 1905. It's cut. We're missing part. If you look at it, the margin's missing. One page is just half. We might have to get a cleaner copy of it. But it is the easement grant that we needed to slap the table on the other half of the trail for bikes. So I hope we can do that by our next meeting. So that's also is no longer an issue. It'll be bikes full time. And then of course, Safe Routes to School gets Tuesday. We still haven't decided on Salsa Drive itself, the trails in Salsa Drive on Salsa Drive are in the road right-of-way easement. We never allowed bikes there before. The current map indicates we're going to allow bikes there, and we just need an answer from you, Howard, or whether that's something you want to do. I don't know how important it is to the committee to have that because you can really ride right in the road, but Jacqueline,
Yeah, I
please.
mean, I'm happy to chime in on, so as far as the only reason we even showed that one as multi-use is because on the, we were first going by, well, what does the on the ground signage say? Because that's what most people, if they're out there, are seeing. And the on the ground signage says it's okay for bikes right now. It says
Oh, okay.
multi-use. So that's the main reason it says that, but I bike every single day with my kids and we have never once even considered.
Yeah, that's my
using the
point.
trail there because
It's way too convenient to
it's
use
not
the road.
safe. There's not really a trail.
Yeah.
It's a dead end street. So as much as I am a proponent of bikes, that is not one, it honestly doesn't even make,
Yeah.
I could go
agree.
either way. I mean, sure, the grounds, sounds on the ground say it, but it's not, there's barely a trail, to be honest.
Well, Howard can always improve that, right? He can widen
Yeah.
trails.
And it crosses the street.
Hang on a sec.
So you would literally go one little part.
Liz, are you still here? There's 5 connections.
here
Oh,
she
yeah,
is.
she's there.
I am here, but yeah, you guys just went quiet. I heard Jacqueline say, oh no, I heard you say that Howard could improve the trail to make it safer for bikes, but that's where it cut out.
Yeah, so I'm going to leave that up to Howard to take a look at and get back to us on. I'm like Jacqueline, I could go either way. I don't have a strong opinion. I don't know if it's
I mean-
time well spent or money well spent, but it's up to Howard.
It seems like there's also maybe just on our map, we could indicate, so like Willowbrook, does Willowbrook allow bikes?
No.
Willowbrook
No.
Trail?
No.
No, okay. Because it's a very analogous thing where
Yeah,
like, if
there's
you're on a
some-
bike,
Even
You
if
should-
it's
you should be
dead,
on the
you're just-
road.
It's a quiet road.
anyway, I will withdraw my.
Yeah, Ed of the Bicycle Pedestrian Traffic Safety Committee will tell you the same thing. On roads like that, he would prefer the bikes in the street. He thinks it's actually safer.
Yeah.
So,
I have a question. Jacqueline, you mentioned about trails that don't exist now but possibly in the future. Are there any specific ones proposed or thought of that you want to consider?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now it was just the Hillbrook one as an example, but I just wanted, I think it will continue to come up in the future, right? 5 years from now, there's gonna be some new committee members that are gonna say, could we ever have this specific trail is just a safe route to school? I mean, I can guarantee you when we go and publish this, I know a lot of families that still don't understand that section between where the Hawthorns is going to be, right? Like they just don't get why their kids can't go straight to Alpine Hills. I know that hopefully years from now that will be part of Hawthorne, but that will be another one that will come up again, right? And so I just wanted to, it sounds like right now what you're saying is the current suggestion is, no, that's not under. So I just want to understand what, I guess one thing that crossed my mind that I'd be curious by would be, take Hillbrook. Let's say you reached out to every homeowner and asked permission and said, this trail is not a multi-use trail. We know that. We know that based off of the easement. Would you be okay with this being allowed for kids to commute to school during this hour and this hour? And if one person says no, okay, there's our answer.
Well, absolutely. So, that was where I was going to go with this, is that it's not over just because we have to take it off the map now. We've learned a lot of things about easements, right? And I shared with you that one concept of, rather than doing separate easement grants on each parcel, they do it in one big grant, and all the homeowners sign the one grant. So I think there's just one recording. It's maybe a lot cheaper, could be quicker. I don't know for sure, but there's things tools we can use that we should investigate to see if they will work for us, that will make that job a lot easier. And yes, we should talk to the property owners. I mean, that's how we were doing this on Salzwell. We went straight to the property owners. So the property owners, they're the ones that we're actually protecting by not allowing bikes on, right? It's their private land, right? So if they choose to accept that risk and they are willing to give the town an easement, then absolutely we could put bikes on Hillbrook Trail. However, there's another step in there. Once I think we get the easements, then we have to go to Howard and say, Howard, is this safe? What needs to be done to make it safe? I know there's probably a number of us who would have issues with some of the things on Hillbrook Trails with regards to bikes. So we'd have to look at getting those fixed. If we got those fixed, you're done. You have it as a.
Do you think even though just for safe routes to school, you're suggesting it might still require that full change?
It will. Unfortunately, it will.
Just a little. Sure, we're okay from 8 to 8:30.
Yeah, so the town has no authority to override the restrictions or the designations of private property easements. We went to the attorney on that, and we just can't do it. Now, the town council adopted a resolution that did it. And it kind of went on that way without anybody saying anything for a long time. So, but legally, I don't think they were allowed to do that. And I don't think us as a committee should ask the town to do something that's, not completely above the line, right? That said, maybe it won't be that hard of a job to get the residents to agree to it. If we really have that much support for it, and we have a program now where people can donate money to help make a trail multi-use, for example. So I'm not giving up. I don't think anybody should give up, but I think we, for right now, have to take it off and then get to work.
Okay. And then following up on that, so our current, at one point we talked about unbundling them and trying to push forward with safe routes to school, but it sounds like we're back to wanting to do those at the same time and wait for the public maps. Right?
Yeah, and I think that will make Howard much more comfortable. Howard, I don't know if you want to talk to that point.
Yeah, it is a long-term on a technical view. I know that on the surface, it looks all easy. We can get it. But when we talk about property rights, it's very complicated. In fact, when we get easements, the process is actually, you have to get a land surveyor and actually outline the exact easement, have that submitted to the town. The town council has to accept it also. So there is money involved here in engineering, and also then constructing it to the standards for the bikes also. So so Gary is correct. This is, I don't want anyone to get frustrated that, oh, we're working on this and nothing's coming to fruition. It's unfortunate that the way these things were developed, as informal as sometimes the town can be in its past, if we want to flush things out officially, it takes time and money and convincing people of their property rights. And in addition to that, there were, over the decades, there were probably reasons of not just easements, but homeowners and equestrians that didn't want a certain use on a specific section of trail. So we have to look at those things too, and unwind those things and find out why. So there's a lot of work here. I mean, I think if we start off with a map, if we had an official map that we had all the easements drawn out, that's one thing. But I think here we're diving into some territory that we need to find out some unknowns.
Can I just suggest we have 4 minutes until Liz has to drop? And we have the next 2 items I think she's critical for.
Yeah, sure, you can jump to that. I only had one other thing, but it can fall under a different category, so go ahead.
Sure. Liz, would you like to jump in on your item number C, 5C?
Yes, thanks. Okay, that's PV trail map update. So this is the public map update. And we just sort of heard, yes, we're going to have the public map update and the Safe Routes to School map update in tandem and together, whatever those next steps may be. And with regards to the public map update, couple things. So I met with Gary and Howard for a long time this week, and we got into the nitty-gritty details of the final few remaining items that need to be worked out. So that's in process. Thank you to everyone who did give feedback on the draft map that was distributed in November. I hope you've been using it as you've been hiking around. It's fabulous. And on that note, Gary approved a gift for our cartographer, Dave Evans. And since this is a public call, I'm not going to say what it is, but I'm going to get that organized and get that to him. He has given the town, I'm sure, close to 100 hours, if not more, on these 2 maps. It's just incredible. And we will get the files from him, and we will have different layers. And so we won't lose any of the information that we gathered, even though it might not maybe be displayed on a public map or something. But so this has been a fabulous process to get all this information. So we're, maybe in the 3rd, 4th quarter on getting the map to the point where we can come back to the main committee here and have you guys see it and give to you the feedback, what we decided to do with all your feedback. And then my understanding is that that would be accompanied with a resolution that we would write that would then go to the town council for approval. And that's where the public map stands. Any questions on that?
That was a good summary, Liz. And I just want to thank Howard for all the time he spent with us this week. You're right. We really got down to the details of what's left, and there's not that much left. And the things that we're working on are of benefit to the town. So it's worth waiting a little time to get these things on that map if we can do it. I would also ask if Judith wants to or has any questions about this process, or if she needs a full explanation about the new resolution that we're going to ask you to take to the town council. So yeah, there's some issues that, as Howard pointed out, just take some time to resolve. They largely have to do with the easements, the underlying easements. We're close. I mean, if we decided to just take those things off the map, we could submit it today. But like I said, we think it's worth a little time to get them on the map. So timing will be once those are all resolved, we will need one more meeting to bring it to the public's view and then for the committee to take a vote on it. And then at that point, we would pass the resolution to Judith with the maps, and Judith, I believe, sponsor it at the town council meeting. That's the next steps. Well, it's certainly desirable for a safe routes to school. It's a feeder trail onto Alpine. You're right, and it's certainly desirable. The issues are, it was never designed for trails, and the easements were very clear that they were for equestrians only. They don't even allow pedestrians on there, although I think we can safely say that they're permitted just by virtue they've been on there for 40 years. What is that called? A prescriptive easement? When you use it for so long, you get to keep what you're doing. So we're not too worried about that, but they're very clear that the bikes aren't to be on. Judith, meet Jacqueline.
Yeah.
Jacqueline, meet Judith.
I got on our subcommittee just because I have kids and we bike every day to school. So I've learned so much and I'm totally unsupportive. Obviously, we need to follow the easements, but I also am trying to help kids get around town. So, yeah. Yeah.
Bikes
Yeah.
everywhere.
You know, and I'm just thinking out loud, Jacqueline, to your original point of, you know, would we put a trail on the Safe Route to School map just for a certain time? That might be one way to sell the residents on Hillbrook Trail. Like, give us the easement that allows us to do it between 8 and 10, and then again at, you know, 2 to 4, whatever. And that would be a much more narrow scope of what we'd be asking those homeowners to commit to, and then maybe they would be more likely to do it. I don't know. So something to think about.
I mean, that's a common thing in trails outside of our town.
Yeah, absolutely.
Time of day uses.
And it would get written right into the easement.
And you would avoid the problem of, you know, people coming on the weekends from out of town
Yep.
and being like, hey, Hillbrook's a great downhill.
One day we're going to get enforcement put on our agenda, but we're not going to talk about that
It's coming.
today. Yes, it's coming. Okay, great update, Liz. Any other questions for Liz so she can get back to the beach? I hope you're going to the beach, Liz.
No, I'm going to the airport.
Oh, okay.
To go to the beach.
Yeah. To a different beach.
To come home to what looks like it's cold, given what you guys are wearing.
It's freezing. Okay. So does anybody have any questions for Liz or any more thoughts on the PV trail map update? Should I keep moving? No, good. Okay, wonderful. Liz, 5D, the Trails Database Subcommittee update.
Yeah, so I have been interviewing various people that were on the list, the recommended list, to interview folks to potentially create the Trails database. And I still have some key people, including Howard, to sit down with, and Fred, and one other person. But I've met with multiple people and gotten great ideas on how to create this database. And I'm even, as I am taking notes on the call, thinking about how information at these meetings would be entered into the database separate from formal notes, so that we don't lose, you know, information relative to decisions and background on various trails, and can easily find that in the future. So work in progress.
Okay, great. Thanks for the update. Is it your intention you're going to interview everyone and then put together a scope and bring that before the committee to talk about? Is that kind of where we're at?
Yes. And there was a list that I discussed it in the November meeting of who everyone had suggested I speak to. There were like 8 people. And that's what I'm referring to when I talk about the people I would reach out to. Again, this is to discuss how the vehicle, the receptacle, the database would work, not to discuss your personal historic knowledge about the trail. We're not there yet.
Understood. Okay, fair enough. You're talking about building the framework of the database, but not talking about putting information in it at this point.
Exactly.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Any questions on that, Susan?
So I realize you just said that, you know, you're not talking from a historical standpoint, but from a historical standpoint, I'm just kind of a little bit confused as to why we need this in the first place. Like, what unfulfilled need is this meeting? From a historical standpoint, I can tell you that we very rarely get questions of this magnitude and depth from the public. Also, the minutes are very searchable. If you have any questions about anything that has to do with the trail, you can just ask Melissa to search the minutes. But I'm just wondering if, going by what you're doing on Sasso, right? I'm afraid that if we dig too deeply into what we have as our database, we might find out things we really don't want to know. This is my concern. Didn't you just tell me that one of the trails doesn't permit pedestrians?
Well, that's what the easements say.
Right, but I mean, yeah, we're like, oh, that's what the easements say, but the bottom line is, we really, at some point, if we start getting into a lot of what the easements say, we might have to make things right. I mean, once we delve into this kind of stuff, once we have this knowledge, we have to act upon it. I mean, the other thing is, a lot of these trails might have migrated onto private property through the years. Do we really want to know this either? I mean, I'm not all for ignorance. It's just that I'm not 100% sure I see the need for it.
So
And, the other thing that I was thinking of, I had jury duty the other day, so I was kind of like, taking notes, but I was thinking of some aphorisms that to me apply to the character and the ethos of Portola Valley. And I always think of the one that, like, Ed Davis, may he rest in peace, he would always go, less is more. And like another thing I'm thinking of is leave well enough alone. And then if it's not broke, why fix it? And then perfect is the enemy of good. I mean, this is a lot of work that we're doing. And I think that before we go too much farther on this, I think that we probably need to make sure that maybe even take a vote, make sure that we're all on board with this. And I mean, I could be the only one that feels this way, but I just thought I would bring up my iconoclastic point of view. So there we
Yeah.
go.
Can I offer just
Please.
some thoughts about why it's needed? As we have tried to do the map, there's been so much uncertainty as to why is this the way that it is. We've got this town resolution from 2007. We don't know how that applies. And while there are the meeting minutes, it is still difficult to piece all of that together. And so having a shared understanding of the history, I think, is more likely to be useful than not. I think to the point about, are we worried that we're going to uncover some things that we might not want to know? I would offer that I think we're going through a transformative time as a town where there's all these questions about housing, and those have impacts on trail. We've seen this with Canyon Trail, for example, and not having the historical knowledge and not confronting the problems now just leaves us open to where we will not have any chance to confront the problems at all. And where we might find ourselves, if there's an issue, we could have addressed it. And because we chose to ignore it, we lost our opportunity to address it. And I'm more concerned about that than finding things that, maybe aren't, like in the case of a trail, maybe the specifics of a early, 1950s easement didn't say specifically that people were allowed on it. Well, we should go fix that. I'd rather have us fix that than lose people being allowed because one homeowner, say down the road, gets upset about a housing thing in the town and takes out their ire on us by saying, well, people can't walk on this part of the trail now. I just think it's a bad strategy to just ignore it.
In a word about easements, I mean, our trail system was born out of the granting of easements. Residents of the town literally went and knocked on doors and said, can we get an easement on your property? And they were all equestrians, it really wasn't a hard ask at that time, right? Yeah, of course, and I'll use that trail too. And so easements were the underpinnings of this whole trail system. And then we kind of lost all of that, right? Time went on, easements were, put put in drawers or collected at the county, and we never really, we have a set of subdivision maps, but they're out of date largely in some places. So I think, I'm not afraid of finding something that, for example, like you say, trail wanders outside of an easement, because we do have recourse there in some, I think, I'm not a lawyer, but I think once you've been using a trail for 20 years in a certain way, they have a hard time taking that away from you. It becomes a real easement. I'm more concerned about that, you know, a ADU is approved. These ADUs are getting approved very quickly with not a lot of eyes looking at them, that they get approved right on top of a trail, because that trail did come out outside of the easement, but no one knew where the trail exactly was, right? Those things scare me a little bit more. I think to Liz's point, we're going to have opportunity to discuss both the organization of the database. Is that a good way to term it, Liz? And then the actual data that goes inside of it itself before this project gets kicked off. So I'm completely okay with Liz having a very broad scope right now of wondering, well, what can we put in there? You know, how could this work? We're brainstorming. But when we get to the time when the committee votes on it, I think we'll probably have a solid scope that will work for us the way we want it to work for us. And things that we don't want, if we decide as a committee not to put them in there, that's fine. That's kind of how I see it. Any other thoughts or questions for?
Can I just ask, is it,
Please.
I thought the original intent was a committee resource. Is this a public database then? Because when we originally talked about it, it was so that, like, you guys coming on new and me at the time can just be like up to speed quickly. That's what I thought this was originally about.
I think our intent is that it's a committee resource, but I don't think we should be under any illusion that that means that it somehow is not publicly accessible.
Yeah,
I don't think it's not like I don't think our intention is to put a search link on the website so someone can search it, because that's a lot of work to do. But I think we should go into, I think Susan's point is well
That's why
taken.
I was
It's well
saying
taken.
just to-
well, you know, you can imagine that database, you can have different views. We might open a view to the public that's purely historical. Maybe they want to know how the Joan Tard Trail got named the Joan Tard Trail. You know, maybe that's a very, that's not even data really, it's just history, right? It's not technical data. We may need a lot of technical data in our view of this database. We just don't open that up to the public. So there's lots of options here. And I don't think we decided that. So, you know, make your list of questions as we roll into this. We'll have a chance to ask them and decide on them. Anything else for Liz? Okay, and thank you to everyone who have spent time with Liz and getting interviewed. It was fun, Liz. I enjoyed it.
Thanks. Okay, I'm signing off.
Okay, safe travels.
Thanks.
Okay, item E, trail sign maintenance list. This was a thing Liz wanted me to put on the agenda, just so people know it exists. And she's just trying to keep a list of every sign that needs a little work done on it. Whether it's bleached out because of the sun and it's old, needs to be replaced, or if it's inaccurate and needs a safe route to school moniker on there or something. That list is in existence, so I think we can just send any requests we have for any requests we want Liz to capture. That doesn't mean it will get done, but at least it gets captured, and then Howard gets a view of that list. And you've seen that list already, right, Howard? Yeah. Okay. Any questions about that or thoughts about that?
Great idea.
How do we access that?
Liz has a link.
Oh, okay.
We can ask her to send it out after the meeting. I think it was sent out once already,
Oh, a while ago.
and it's just a Google,
Exactly.
Google Drive thing. Okay, item F. Boy, we've been waiting a while to talk about this. This is my favorite thing to talk about. I so want to do this year. Horse
So-
fair.
Ellie's not here, so I'm going to talk about it. But for you guys new, who we did this for 6 years.
Yeah, it was a number of years.
Every May,
So much fun.
we do a free horse fair for the community. And by the 6th year, we got hundreds of people It was super cool, and everything is for free. There were carriage rides, pony rides, petting zoo, crafts, there were live horses, Pony Club was there, vaulters were there. All this information about if you were interested in horses, this is how you can be involved, or if you're kind of intimidated by them or afraid of them, come and meet some. Listen to a horse's heartbeat, see that they're actually, most of them are pretty chill. Come and learn a little bit about how the bikes and the horses and the hikers and the runners all share the trails. And you know, win a raffle prize or 20.
For 20. Joe and I kind of got that wrong last.
So anyway, we were all set to do it in 2020 and COVID hit and we had to cancel everybody. And it's organized. We, the trail committee, sponsor it. So that means we pay for most of it. And in the past, many of us on the committee just put money into it because it wasn't, it was costing more than anticipated. Now, I think we're fine.
We're fine. We have budget. yes.
So we'll start revisiting that. And there's a group of people who sit down and organize it on behalf of the Trails Committee. And some of us are on it as well. And we reach out to a bunch of volunteers in the horse community. And we have some you have to pay for the pony rides and the carriage and all of that. So we didn't do it 2020. We couldn't do it 2021. We tried to do it last year and a deadly horse disease was quarantining all the barns and it was super dangerous. You couldn't have, you could pet the horse who had it and touch mine and mine gets it. So we had to cancel it yet again. So this year, we're very hopeful because we have a date. We've sent in the date of May 20th, which is a Saturday, and it runs from 11 till 2. There's also a food truck. And we set it up that morning, so it doesn't really impact anything, but we do close the parking lot. We need the parking lot in front of the tennis courts closed because the big carriage with the draft horses, that's where they stage and they need that area. We also asked for just the skateboarding part of the tennis courts to be closed because there are horses right there and that's a bit frightening. And yeah,
Would you, pickleball has gotten so popular in between.
we're not asking them to close the pickleball courts. No, we would never do that. Not asking for that, but you know how they have the end tennis court is dedicated to skateboarding and stuff like that. And basketball, you can't really have that going on with the horses and stuff going on. So anyway, that's it in a nutshell. And when Ellie gets back, she's gonna organize a meeting and we're gonna start calling everybody and getting everybody lined up. And the day of, anybody who wants to participate, great. The day of, it's nice to have as many committee members out there as possible. And just to talk to people about horses if they have questions, horses and bikes and hikers. And we're really well represented on this committee because we all have, we represent all 3 of those and we even have a long distance runner on it. So yay. So anyway, that's it in a nutshell.
Are there any major changes planned for this year?
Don't know that until we start calling everybody. I suspect, I already saw one, because Ellie asked me to fill out the save the date form, and I saw that there was a whole disclaimer about COVID and safety and all that stuff. And I did not feel comfortable having my name on it, and I put the Trails and Paths Committee. And so I'm sure I'll get a call back about it, but that's new. I don't know. There's always insurance. We have to get insurance from every person, which is hugely hard. And I sent out a few emails to find out if we could get a general day event insurance that would cover everybody. So we don't have to run through that. But I'm sure I'm going to be finding out because in 3 years in COVID, a lot could change.
I don't mean to,
Yeah.
open a can of worms with pickleball. But if we are gonna close that parking lot, wouldn't it just make sense to give everybody the notice, like the whole courts are closed? Because like that's most, I don't play pickleball, and my sense is that everyone parks over there and that's where they stage all their stuff. And it's only 3 hours. I mean, it's 3 hours of, well, I guess it's not 3 hours. It's the morning too.
It's all day.
It's
But
all
if we
We
give enough notice,
don't want to close pickleball, I'll tell you that right now. But the pickleball.
but it's
they're-
loud. Pickleball is much louder than.
So
They're
tennis.
away from the majority of the staging is in the field in front.
Okay.
I
It-
just
it's-
feel like we haven't closed it to tennis before and it was fine.
Okay.
We did the first year and people were super unhappy. And it also then leaves a bad, then you're already setting the public up not to like horses. Because you're not, the pickleballers don't necessarily care about the horses, but maybe they want to come over and meet them and have a food truck. But they can park here and walk over. All their equipment is stored right there.
Sure.
So that's my opinion, but
yeah, believe it or not, the players don't bother the horses at all. It's their cars parked there. We had them bringing flags out and other things, right when the horse is going by. So we
Like
really,
the sound of the pickleball is not,
No.
I know that's.
that's
I
fine.
don't care.
But yeah, it is. It would almost be easier to close it down, but I'm okay with giving people option to still play, but they just can't park over there. That we cannot have. And we also have to close the baseball.
That's on there too.
Okay, good. And Howard, you know about that.
Fred will carry that position, or your point during the meetings. I'll make sure that we thoroughly address that.
Hope we can get that woman back who paints the bones of the horse, the skeleton of the horse.
That was Nicole Miller.
Oh, yeah, is she
Yeah.
still in town?
And whose horse was it? It was
Mine.
yours, right? Yeah. So we can do
White
that again.
horse.
It was so fascinating.
And Gary Haynes is on board again?
We're just starting. There's a lot of people.
So we'll be
call.
advertising at the school district and
We called local vets to come and then we have Mary Huffey brings a couple of Icelandics so kids can listen to the horse's heartbeat and they come in and then they get a ribbon for doing it. And
very kid
yeah,
friendly.
it's just so that people understand they're not very scary.
And what's interesting is you can't ride your own horse to the horse fair
No.
because the insurance won't allow it.
No.
So all of us with horses, we gotta walk.
Walk your horse to the horse. thing?
No, the horse can't be present on the grounds, I think is the thing. And okay, we live with it, it's fine. Thank you, Barb, for jumping in, and thank Ellie too, when you see her. I mean, it's a lot of work, and Joe will be ready. Where are the fence panels? We'll get into that later.
Good there.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even know.
Probably in. They're close? Okay,
Perfect.
cool. All right, well, I'm so looking forward. It's gonna be a lot of fun. All right, any other questions on that? Public comment? I should be calling public comment on this, but we just don't have any public. So, budget priorities, item 5G. I attended a council meeting a couple of weeks ago where committee chairs were invited to present their budget priorities to the council so the council could take that input and fold it into their own priorities. Again, the fiscal year is June to June. So we're right in the middle of a fiscal year. We're almost done with it, 3/4 of the way. And I presented our budget priorities, but I do not present Howard's budget priorities at that meeting. His priorities come at a different time, a different meeting. However, we have delivered our capital improvement project list to Howard, so he has that as the basis for his budget. So don't worry, we haven't forgot all about all that stuff, which is actually very expensive, but that will come under Howard's budget and not the Trails and Paths Committee budget. So I presented on all the projects that we were doing, the Safe Routes to School map, the town trail map, the database, the horse fair, and the community hike as being budget priorities for our committee. So I expect we'll get budget for all of those things. Just thinking again out loud, Barb, if you're concerned that the budget's going to need to be a little higher because everybody costs more now, right? Let me know and I will get that information in
Thanks.
to Cindy.
Well, I'm gonna call.
Cindy, who do I give that to?
Cindy wrote us.
Yeah, that's it.
I
So let
just
me know.
need to find out if what the insurance issues for the town.
E-
or
Even if you have a
because-
gut feeling, I'd rather double it or something, because I think it's only 5K or something like that, right? We used every year for the,
Yeah,
so
But
why
the-
don't I just double that, just to be careful?
yeah, I don't think we'll have to. I
It's
just-
okay if we don't spend it. It'll go
Yeah,
back.
I just need to find out if we can do a general, I don't know what's happened with COVID insurance. So,
I would try to ask folks not to spend their own money on it. I know it's kind of hard to fill out these forms, but we shouldn't be spending our own money on it. The town has the money.
Right.
And we should be getting anybody who does spend out of pocket reimbursed. I know that didn't happen in the past sometimes, but I want to make sure that happens. Okay, wonderful. Any other questions about budget priorities? Public comment? We're good, okay. Let's move on to new business. Item 6A, the land use statement. This is kind of, I probably didn't phrase this the best way, but this is mostly a governance issue. And I think everybody's up to date, but I'll just give a little bit of a background here. In October, the town council approved a rule. I guess this is a council rule. I don't know the difference between an ordinance, a council rule, there's so many different legal entities. It's a rule that all committees, all commissions, and the town council place this land use statement on their agendas. And the reason that caught my eye is, in governance, typically the chair is in charge of their agenda. And as a chair, I don't feel comfortable putting things on our agenda that I know haven't been up for discussion by our committee. And that's just a hard rule as a chair, in kind of under the governance umbrella. I shouldn't be assuming that you are supportive of a certain statement or supportive of a certain perspective. What I do, and I think we've all seen this, is our agenda is largely built out of items that are presented from committee members. I can only think of maybe one time I put an item on there myself, other than bookkeeping and other items related to the town. So when this one popped up, I simply asked, hey, just hold off on it and let us agendize it and talk about it, and we'll get back to you with our feelings on that. The town pushed back really hard. And the town said, no, we're going to keep that on there. If you take it off, we'll just put it right back on. And I thought that was just the wrong approach to take. I think I see this as actually being a collaborative process between committees and the Equity and Race Committee that produced this statement, where we should be feeding our input back into them, make this better, make it work for everybody, right? There's a lot in that statement. I'm not going to judge it. I don't know that I'm even capable of judging it without having to go through some thought processes myself, but I can't assume that all of you do, right?
Does everybody know what you're talking about?
The land use statement.
I know what you're talking about.
Joe,
It's the, yeah, the land.
Yeah.
land
Yeah, I
acknowledgement.
emailed
Okay.
everybody, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's up to speed on it. So what I wanted to do today is just get everybody's feelings on this. Are you okay with it being on our agenda? Are you okay with what it says? How do you feel about these types of items going on our agenda? Because we talk about equity. If we're going to open up our agenda to have statements relating to whatever cause or purpose, we have to be equitable, and allow other people to put statements on our agenda. So, where does it start? Where does it end? How do we feel about it? I did speak to this at the same town council meeting where we talked about budget priorities, and I know a couple other chairs did as well. So I think the town council will be revisiting this at some point to get input from all the committees. I don't know when that will happen, but today, if we can talk about it and then just package our input together and send it to Judith, and then be done with this. Joe.
I'll start off. When I first read that statement, the first thing that came to mind was class action suit against the residents of Portola Valley. And being a financial liability of the residents to make retribution for the past long ago. And I just thought, wow, we're really saying that? There's going to be an attorney out there or two that is going to love this. And I thought it was wrong. That was my initial, and I still feel that way.
Okay, thank you, Susan.
And I also agree wholeheartedly with Joe. When I read the sentence, we seek to understand the impact of these legacies on all beings and to find ways to make repair. I mean, isn't the best way to make repair to give the land back? So, I mean, I agree with Joe. I think that it makes it kind of ripe for a lawsuit now. And I also think it's overly dramatic, the land acknowledgement. I don't know if you've read the one. I mean, these things are, if I can use the word trendy or of the moment, you know, Mid-Penn has one now. Just about every agency has one. But the Stanford land acknowledgement to me is much cleaner and doesn't kind of make us or the people who are reading it feel responsible for doing this grievous, heinous act, which is kind of what the town of Portola Valley's statement says. It to me, it's over the top. It's a little kind of purple prose-ish. So Stanford says, Stanford sits on the ancestral land of the Ohlone tribe. This land was and continues to be of great importance to the Ohlone people. Consistent with our values of community and inclusion, we have a responsibility to acknowledge, honor, and make visible the university's relationship to Native peoples. Not that I 100% agree with that either, but to me, it's less passionate and it just sounds a little bit better. I'm assuming this land acknowledgement is a done deal, that this is something that the town is, it's too late, right, to modify this. Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah, I know a number of committee members have already written letters into the town council. That might be the best way to do it. Your meetings would run way too long and start way too late. And as someone with kids, you know, it's usually right about bedtime that they get started, or you're finishing a bath or something, and I just can't listen in on those things anymore. Submitted in writing, it gets in. Right, and I know Lucy Neely, I've been in touch with her. She's taking input, and I believe they discussed it at their meeting last night. Valentine's Day. So, I mean, we have a wonderful partner there in the Race and Equity Committee to work with, who I know will appreciate our input. They're asking for our input. I know this is new to everybody. My opinion is I don't think I generally have a problem with a land use statement. This one's got a lot in it. I don't know that it's appropriate for everybody. So I would want them to look at that. But it being on our agenda really bothers me because, you know, if it's on our agenda, it generally should be in our purview. You know, it should be something, and it actually calls out for action. This is, we're going to actively look, well, the Trails and Committee, the Pass Committee is not going to do that. That's not in our charter. So we're again, this is a governance issue. We're really putting something in a place it shouldn't be. Now, Judy explained it to me as it being a letterhead item. And I said, well, okay, but letterhead items, maybe a sentence, not a full paragraph. It takes up half a page. It's not a letterhead item anymore. But I see her point, and you know, letterhead items I'm not too concerned about. Like if it was something that worked into the seal of the town, it would be fine. But if you have a whole paragraph that is calling for action that's outside of the purview of our committee, of the charter of our committee, then I don't know, even if it was the Stanford statement, I don't know that that's something that should go on our agenda. That's something I think all committees should take a look at.
It's supposed to be on our agenda every meeting. Is that the idea?
Yeah, it's on our agenda now. I took it off when I submitted.
Because I also think it's, as you said, I think it's disingenuous for us to have the statement. I mean, at least on my part, I'm not going to be spending, I don't know how many of us will be seeking to understand the impact of these legacies. I mean, it just, Doesn't seem right to me.
Yeah, you know, I went back and listened to the town council meetings and we'll have more input. So I know you guys want,
Sorry.
no, it's okay. There were two readings. The first readings, the council didn't ask a single question. And usually that's when you do the meat and potatoes of something like this. And then the second reading, it was on the consent calendar, because usually the second reading, you just approve it unless there's a lot of things that may have changed. So in the second reading, they actually pulled off a part that was going to require that we read this statement at the beginning of each meeting.
Kind of like school
So
prayer or
there's the
something.
council caught that. They go, wait a minute, that's not going to work out very well. Or it's not appropriate, or whatever their thoughts were. I don't want to speak for them. But they left in place this rule that it would go on every committee agenda without asking a single committee, you know, for input. And that's, again, was one of the other problems I had. And I thought my solution was reasonable to just take it off, let us discuss it, we'll get back to you. But they didn't go for that.
The
So
last town council meeting agenda not have it.
there were a couple of agendas that didn't have it. It's like they thought about it for a couple of weeks at the beginning of January. And so they didn't tell us. We don't know what they were thinking about or why that was left off, but then it came back on and it's on every agenda I looked at. More comments, thoughts?
So I'm supportive of the statement. I'm supportive of it being on the agenda. I think it very clearly talks about this as a thing about the town. I think it causing a little discomfort for those of us who live here is in part of the point. And you know, if you look at sort of the relative equities of us feeling a little uncomfortable and maybe thinking a little bit more about sort of the sort of history of this place, I think on balance, that's probably a good thing, particularly when you're weighing that against what happened to the people referenced here. So that said, I do think the discussion of this, there's a great place for it. It's the Race and Equity Committee meetings, and you know, maybe the time that they're choosing to hold them wasn't great, but I think if we're interested in changing it, like I would encourage us to engage there, because I think it's a pretty, you're right, these are more common now, and I participate in a lot of trail races, and there is one of the ones that I care the most about is the Western States Endurance Run, and at the beginning of that run, there is a person from one of the tribes and Tevis Cup is the other race that runs through, and they talk about it, and it's a very I would say it's a very positive experience when they talk about it and they welcome everyone onto the land. So there's a building of community, and I think maybe one of the things that has gone a little bit sideways here is that there probably is an ability or an opportunity to build community with something like this, and that's more what we need to do. And it feels like process maybe broke down here. So definitely acknowledge that. But I do think that these things can be helpful and good when executed the right way. And so I'll stop there.
Great. Jacqueline?
Oh, I mean, just a little echoing what both of them said, I guess, nothing too new, but just, I do think the fact that it says the town of Portola Valley, I don't know that it's necessarily saying our committee or our members like have an action item here. So it's not that it makes me uncomfortable in that way, but I completely agree when you read what the Stanford says. I didn't like that. I was just like, some of the choices of words, I found it to be a bit harsh, whereas I did at least feel that the way that you just read that other one was just, yeah. So that was my only, I didn't like the tone, but I don't feel I'm to any obligation.
I was just going to agree with Fred, because I think it makes a big difference when you are in a group, because I lead tours at Jasper Ridge at Stanford. So that's how I know the Stanford acknowledgement. And I actually kind of like it. And it's a nice back and forth. And it really, it's almost holy when you can do it verbally. And as I said, I just bristled at this one because of the way it was kind of foisted upon us and the way in which it was written. I just think that it could have been done a little bit better.
Yeah, and just, I don't know if this, what the participation of folks from the tribes referenced here was, but I would encourage any of us who at least engage with either Lucy or the committee, is that seems to be an important component of making these things actually powerful, is having people from the tribes participate and help define what's said.
Yeah, and I think there's a component of this that I really like, and that is, respecting the land, respecting how we use the land, given the way that we came to live here and the way that we have come to enjoy our town. And so I would like to see something more about that. And to that end, I think putting a plaque out on a trail somewhere, this was Ohlone, campsite, or this was, part of their land and their purpose, goes a lot further than just sticking something at the bottom of the agenda that people are going to start ignoring, right? And so I would love to find ways where we can, as a committee, as a Trails Paths Committee, find ways to honor the history of the land, and by practice, respect the land, right? And so those are very tangible kinds of things to me that I've talked to Lucy about. And I don't know if they've talked to a tribe person. They probably have, I don't know. But you're right, this is the best place to discuss this is at the Race and Equity Committee. I imagine Lucy will listen to our tape today to get all of our input. I let her know we were agendizing. So any other thoughts or discussions on this? Otherwise, we'll just send it over to Lucy. And if Lucy's interested, we could always have her come give a presentation here too. That's another thing we could ask.
Well, I've got to say one more thing. It just opens up. I feel badly the way our country has developed and taken away and abused so many different ethnic groups. The Chinese building the railroads, blacks enslaved, and many other groups that there's no end to it. So in the gist of it, the desire to express our, yes, we realize how what has happened to certain people. It can only be said for so long. To keep saying it, it seems like it ought to be put to bed sometime, but not forgotten. That's for sure. Never forgotten. Just don't want too much of it over and over. That to be the number one, if it ever becomes the number one point.
That's what I think we're hearing a lot is balance. Taking into account people's concerns. I don't think statements like this should cause people to feel guilty or give them anxiety. I think that's exactly the opposite. I'm more in line with what Fred said, that there's an opportunity here to really bring the community together around this, and I hope that would then translate to more respect for the land. So yeah, those are all good comments and feedbacks to give to them. I'll make sure Lucy listens to this. I don't know what will happen after that. We'll just wait to hear what Shiva will find out at the council. Yeah.
Good that some of our street names are named after Native American.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Let's move on. You gotta go.
Sorry.
No, nice to see you.
Thank you.
Nice to see you in person. Okay, we still have a quorum, so I'll go ahead and move on. Item 6B. So this is something that's starting to, I think, get out of hand. And I appreciate Howard's willing to take these parking issues on case by case, but that doesn't scale very well. And for the newer committees and the newer members on the committee, the town used to have its own building official, Brent Hipsher. And he would find these things before we would find them. So he'd be driving around town all the time. And if he found someone parking on the trail, he took care of it right away. It was very few times when we had to call Howard and say, Howard, this is a problem. So in light of the fact that we don't have that person anymore, we use a contract building inspector. That means they're not here most of the time. We have to actually call them and send them to each specific situation. I just don't think that scales well. And I feel bad asking Howard to do that all the time because he's got a lot of stuff to do too. So the question for the committee is, we don't have to answer this today. How do we want to solve this problem? I mean, because it's costing the town money now. Some of those trails are so muddy that the trucks park on them. They just rip up the tread. Howard's got to get back in there and fix it. I don't know if this is something where they need a sign at the job site saying no parking on trail, or I don't know how to solve this problem. And so I'm reaching out to the committee to think about it and try to recommend ways to the town to deal with this, because it's gotten pretty bad, you know.
You know, I remember, Fred, we talked about it, you and the rest of the committee talked about it at one point. And you said something interesting, because I was, of course, send the sheriff and ticket everybody there because they're always there. And I respectfully asked them, please don't park there. Kids, you're putting everybody in the road and you can't see. And you said, you got to go after the contractor, basically. So I think maybe the contractor should be fined. So if they keep violating the people on, because I'm appalled at, you guys does anybody have kids at Ormondale now?
Yeah.
Shawnee and Cervantes, they are on the trail all the time, and they have the other side blocked off with rope, and you can't see around that curve. And I walked down there because I've walked down there 3 times and said, who's in charge here? Because the kids are coming out of school. They don't got nowhere to walk. You're putting them in the street. It's a one-way street now. This is so dangerous.
And they park real close to the stop sign.
They
Right?
do.
You can't see
They-
until you
they
get
can't
right
see.
up there.
It's not tenable.
And
And,
the-
oh, yes. I said, well, who's in charge? Can we do something about this?
So the way this is supposed to work is that when applicants file for their building permit, they include what's called a staging plan. And the staging plan is supposed to account for parking, material storage, all those kinds of things. So I would imagine each project still has one of those. Is that correct, Howard? They still require a staging plan?
Yes.
Our
How do we
general
find the
comments.
contractor then?
Yeah,
How would you send them a warning and then say,
well, what's
So-
happening, I think, is there's a disconnect between them submitting a plan and that plan actually being sufficient to keep the parking off the trails. So if you submitted a proper staging plan, it would have to show where you're going to park 40 trucks if your project requires you have 40 trucks. And if you can't park 40 trucks, you should have to, shuttle people in and out like they've done in a number of projects in town. And then that has to somehow be enforced. But I don't think they're looking close at these staging plans anymore. I mean, it's some consultants that are looking at them. I don't look at the staging plans that often because a lot of times they're not in the initial package for review. They come about later in the process. So I don't know that we're getting a good look at the staging plans. I don't know if the staging plans are sufficient to provide for all the parking that these big projects need. And so we might have to start at that level and fix that stuff so that maybe, this never happens or it doesn't happen as much or to the scale that it's happened.
Yeah, I think that brings up the broader issue of enforcement of, the rules of the trails. And we don't really have a mechanism to enforce our rules today. And Howard's smiling because I know that the folks in the ranch have brought this up on a different topic, but related. My sense is even if you get the staging plans all really nice. I mean, the number of subcontractors who come in and out varies over time. I think you really have to make it so that the contractors on an ongoing basis know that they have to pay attention to this. And I think the only way you do that is with enforcement.
I agree with you 100%.
These projects generally have a project manager, and that person is static through the bulk of the lifespan of the project. And they're the ones that generally should be telling the subcontractors, hey, this is where you can park and where you can't. Because I've heard that excuse a number of times from homeowners and contractors. Well, the subs come in and they don't know. And well, whose responsibility is it? So Howard, you're hearing all this, maybe it's time to get a little tougher with some of these people. I don't know. When Brent Hipsher was here, contractors feared him. I mean, that guy would go in, and if they did something wrong, he would red tag them, or he would actually, when I was building my barn, we put the insulation over some electrical and he didn't like it. He went and pulled all the insulation out of my barn so he could see the electrical. And then he yelled at my contractor. They feared him. So it just never
Well,
happened.
and it has ruined trails. The Westridge Trail is wrecked. The
Fawn Trail.
Fawn Trail is wrecked again. I mean, you can't park on these trails. I don't know what Shawnee looks like, because I could never see the trail because there's cars on it the whole time. So, but it is really ruining trails. And then it's like, well, they need to fix them then. You wreck them. Why is the town paying for that?
Which adds up to a lot more work for Howard,
Right.
is where I'm getting at with all this.
And I'm sorry, Howard, because I know I'm always emailing you.
It's okay. If I have a minute, I can explain some of the background
yeah.
stuff and what potentially we can do. So towards the end, I'm going to talk about how far we ratchet this up, because we've always been giving chances. We give out warnings, and we've shut down jobs before. So what happens is when a permit comes in, there is a staging plan, but then we have a pre-construction meeting too, and a checklist. And even in the plan review, we have to say you have to note the trails there. And in the pre-construction meeting, we tell people you can't park on the trail specifically. And we remind them over and over again. And when we start getting complaints, we hear a lot of excuses. Oh, subs. Oh, we're trying to final the house. So I got 50 people here, 60 people. And, say if you do it again, then we're going to have to shut your job down. And then as for damage, during the final, I can assure you that we go out on the final and, I don't believe taxpayers should expense to be repairing damage that private property caused. And we zero in on that. So they repair. So like the thing on Fawn, they repaired the trail. But those things do take time. And I think, when we talk to, the folks on Fawn, I mean, we shut their job down.
Well, but the top of Fawn I'm talking about this next Fawn, up
Yeah,
where it
corner of
hits,
Fawn and Golden Hills.
yeah, where it hits Golden Hills. That trail's ruined now.
So, if you can report those things, I think that, I guess my response would be, I'll talk to the building and planning director and how far we want to ratchet up in enforcement and shutting jobs down.
But the point I think needs to be made, Howard, is that how did their staging plans ever get approved when they have no place to park cars? So the one on the corner of Meadowood and Cervantes, there's nowhere to park cars. So their staging plan must have said, we're going to park them alongside the road. Well, that's not okay when you have 60 cars parked alongside the road. And how do we fix that? How do we get to that level where we make these applicants, we require that the applicants give us a realistic staging plan that shows where they're going to park 40 vehicles, right?
And it's not just the damage, right? We have these trails. People should be able to go on the trails and not
Yes.
have to go
It's
into
a
like
safety
that.
issue too.
It's a safety issue, but it's also, the trails are our asset. And, some of these projects take multiple months, if not years. Like we shouldn't be giving up our trails.
Yeah, I'm not saying we're giving up our trail. I believe the majority, I mean, I could be wrong, most of the time they may not be parked on that. And then they park on there for X number of days or a week during some certain phase and I'm no way in defending them. I'm just saying what we see is they turn in a staging plan. They think they're going to go by the staging plan. And then something happens where they need 50 people there at the site at one time. And maybe they'll try to sneak it in one week without anyone noticing until someone actually calls. So we take it the town takes it very seriously, but I think there needs to be discussion from what I'm hearing is how much more stringent. and-
Much
and-
more stringent.
and
We have to.
proactive
Yeah.
and being more stringent. And I'll talk to, I mean, the ones on the side of the road, they are our right of way. It's in the town's right of way. We have control over it and how far we go. And, you know, once again, it's resources too, how much resources we have to immediately go up there and keep on the whole entire site. And kind of like Gary said, we do have a consultant building official right now, but I will take this feedback back and I'll talk to the building and planning director. But I hear what you're saying. And if it's in the right of way, the town has control of the right of way. And we may have to ramp things up on enforcement and the threshold.
We do have to, but I think we also have to give these folks a chance. So when they submit their plans, we need somebody who could take a look at that and judge as to whether their proposal for parking is realistic or not. Because if it's not realistic, what's going to happen? Right? They're going to park on wherever they're going to park. So you know, if they don't, if you cannot come up with a staging plan that will permit for 40 vehicles to be parked at once, then they have to shuttle people in, and that should be decided before the project gets underway, right?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I'll talk to the building and planning department. I think what happens is there's a plan. There's probably a 12-month plan. And they say, oh, we're going to only have 5 cars here or 10 cars here. And then next thing you know, oh, we changed our mind. Someone wants to move in sooner. We want to speed things up. Then the 10 cars, it turns into 40 cars. And they may not check in.
Well,
with the town.
we're smarter than that. We know there's never 6 cars, right? We're smarter than that. We should have a threshold. You got to be able to park 20 vehicles without, you know, interrupting traffic flows, safety issues, trails, so on and so forth. We should have something like that. So, definitely.
Oh, I was just gonna say, because we did a remodel last year and even if someone has a staging plan though, that shows like, yes, I mean, some days we only had 5, there might have only been 4 vehicles, but it's just in, for whatever reason, people's human nature to feel they're actually doing the right thing, to pull off the road.
Right?
And to pull up on like the bank. And for us, we don't have a trail there, but I just would feel bad. I'm like, someone's yard, like, and we live on a quiet street, but they just think that that's the right thing to do instead of staying on the pavement.
Yep.
And then we just, because we're on a little quiet street, we put some of our own, we took some of our contractors' cones and put some orange cones, just to be like, yeah, can't park here. So I just worry that that's one piece of it. Yes, you have to have the staging plan. Yes, you have to adhere to it, but I think it just has to be super clear that like you park on the pavement, you don't.
I agree.
And I understand, like, they actually think they're doing the right thing. They're like, oh, I'm being out of the way.
Well, the trails are very tempting to park on. They go, oh, look at that nice wide spot.
And yeah, we don't have like manicured grass, so it's sort of like there's some dirt I can pull onto. So anyway, I'm just adding that there's an extra, it's not as basic as just like, yes, you can put it in place, but
I feel like this issue is also sort of part of this broader issue, ensuring that people understand the centrality of the trails to our town's general plan and the character and respect for the trails and being good citizens. And enforcing this is, I think, a really important component of that. And that for me is the bigger issue that this committee needs to be focused on is ensuring that the centrality of trails to Portola Valley stays, and that that we're doing our part in keeping that into the general plan, and that many of these folks who are new, many of these homeowners are newer to the area, that they understand the importance of trails in this town.
I think that's a good summary. Any other comments on this? I think Howard's heard us, and I'll just wait for you to get back to us before we agendize it again. Keep reporting them on
Yeah,
PV
yeah.
Connect.
PV Connect, or just shoot me an email. But once again, we do take it seriously. It's just hard. It's almost like controlling speeding through town. It's people, we've told people over and over, we've shut their jobs down and they still appear there anyways, because they're willing to accept the consequences, unfortunately.
Well, let us know how we can help. If building and planning would like to chat with us and get the benefit of our experience, we'd be happy to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, item 6C, Cervantes Trail at Cresta Vista. So many people have been coming to me and to members of the committee saying, hey, what happened? As we know, they kind of landscaped over a trail section on the corner of Cresta Vista and Cervantes. and pushed people out in front of a big hedge of one of those bottle brush plants with only a small amount of trail there. And the solution, I recall, Howard, you talked to that homeowner, the house was sold, the new homeowner agreed to remove the bottle brush. Well, that hasn't happened. And the trail there, I think it's time we do something about it because it's very unsafe. I see when you're on a horse now, you have to come all the way out the end of Cresta Vista to look out and see if there's traffic coming from that direction. Whereas before, the equestrians would go behind that row of bottle brush, and it was incredibly safe. And we just came right out on the trail, never once had to even look for traffic. So it's really changed the way that the equestrians have to navigate that section there. And I think it's unsafe for everybody, all trail users. There's just not enough trail there with that big, hedge there. So can we do something about that? Can we go ahead and ask the homeowner to remove those trees or bottle brushes?
So, so an update on that. And so how this came about was, the Trails Committee approached us and there was some work done there. And I'll fast forward it. It kind of turned into a code enforcement issue. And so we're working with the previous homeowners rep to address those things. There was some back and forth on some plans and negotiations on plans on where the trail should be, what hedges should be gone or not. So those things are being worked out. And I think we recently agreed on a set of plans that is representative of what we want and indicated that to the owner's rep. And I think we're about to issue the permit, but they are willing to do the work they're willing to do the work. So it's happening soon. And we can ask the contractor for a schedule, but I think it's going to be very soon. They indicated that they wanted to get the work started in the next couple of weeks. So hopefully we'll see some changes then, but I just wanted to give you a background that it was something that the homeowner did that I believe facilitated the sale of the home. It was reported to us by the committee. There was a whole bunch of iterations on back and forth on what we should do, what people's rights were. Potentially the trail could have been on private property, how it got there, how the hedges got planted in the right of way. So there was a lot of back and forth, and that was needed to negotiate kind of what's going to come up now and the fix that's going to happen. So those things are moving along.
Is that representative of the family, the previous owner? You're not being specific enough. What kind of person is that? What is his job, that person's job, the representative? What does that mean?
Well, the owner's design and contractor person has been talking
That's-
to us. Yeah,
That's what it
yeah.
is.
And this is the previous owners.
So it's not like the town, okay, it's just it's simply another layperson that's involved in building process.
Yes, this is a design contractor and that's all.
Okay, good.
So the person that bought the house is a resident of Portola Valley, right? I believe that's the case. I don't know them personally, but I believe that's the case. Were you able at all to consider that like a prescriptive easement, that trail had been that way, even if it might have come off of the trail easement a little bit behind the bottle brush, it had been that way forever, for 40, 50, 60 years, however long. Did we use that or think about using that as leverage to get them to just restore it to the way it was? Because I think that's what everybody would really like, is to restore it to the way it was before. And I know that they weren't willing to agree to that, but as we're talking about what to do if we find a trail has wandered outside of the easement, I would like to see us at least try or think about how we could keep the trails where they are under some legal basis, like a prescriptive easement, or the fact that it has been that way forever, whatever lawyers call that.
Well, I have a question. You say you've come up with something that you think is workable, but did we ever see it? 'Cause trails, right?
No.
So I talked to Susan and Gary at the time, and I think the input I got was something that is closely representative of what was there. So what the plan is to remove the hedge and place it as far away from the road as possible. That section. And then as it goes towards Fawn, it tapers back right next to the roadway because that's where the trail is. So, and you're welcome to take a look at it after the meeting here. I can show you, but we tried best to make it look like what it was before. But just on our side of the property, not on private property. And my take is also, it was probably in the right of way at one point, but somehow and we're not talking many feet. We're talking a couple of feet.
Yeah, that's not much.
It's 1 or 2 feet. So all we're doing is moving it back towards the right of way. It's still away from, we own very wide right of way there. I think it was something like 15 or 18 feet or something like that. And we took the difference. We took the 18 feet, we split it down the difference. So it's still away from the roadway, but after about 150 feet, it tapers back to the roadway also.
Have we ever gotten a legal opinion from Kara or any other land use attorney about what prescription easements are and would they ever apply in situations like this?
I did, and I'd rather, instead of having, I don't have the exact words on top of my head, but I can get back to you or the chair.
That would be great, because I think we
Yeah.
should be prepared for when this happens again. It's likely to happen again at some point.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
think
sorry, go ahead, please. Sorry, this is Bob Tinker. I'm actually the new homeowner at the house in question here. So.
Oh, hi, Bob. Welcome.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. So, yeah, so first of all, sorry for the background noise, but my name's Bob Tinker. We're the new owners of 210 Cervantes, which is at the corner of Cresta Vista and Cervantes. And, candidly, we're not exactly sure of sort of the historical nature of sort of the dispute and what's going on here. But look, we are excited to be part of the Portola Valley community. We fully support walking trails and equestrian trails. It's part of the reason why we're moving back to Portola Valley. We're happy to sort of fix and re-implement sort of the trail according to the plans that we worked out with Howard. We have a landscape architect that's doing the work to come up with the plans. We're going to get rid of the bottle bushes because we're not exactly sure why those were even in the right of way in the first place. And, appreciate Howard's work and sort of iterating with us to be able to make it happen. But we definitely want the trail to be there and have it be usable and grade it properly and everything else like that. We've got a professional contractor standing by to do the work sort of, whenever we get the green light. So appreciate the discussion here and, we're excited to be part of the community.
Well, great. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. Bob, did you ever see the trail as it was before those landscape improvements were put in? Did you ever in your?
No,
No.
we did not. That's part of the reason why, we don't really have a good understanding of the history here. And I don't.
Yeah, well,
Don't
so
know.
while we absolutely appreciate, and I can't tell you how much we appreciate working with homeowners like yourself who are willing to tackle these problems. So thank you. The way that trail used to be before was super cool for equestrians. I mean, it just worked so well because it kept us out of that intersection. The new plans will probably be adequate. I haven't looked at them. I know that Howard generally covers all of his bases. However, it's just we lost something that we'll never get back that a lot of the questions thought was really cool. So another point to consider, however, I think the process as we're going through now is the right one. And we look forward to engaging with you as that work gets done.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We're happy to do our part. So thank you.
Any other comments or thoughts on this item? Well, we got to get everybody out of here.
And just to touch bases, I did at the time prior to the home being bought, I understood it as they had concerns that the trail was on private property. Once again, this is a couple of feet, and the input was basically we want a trail that is representative of what was there before. So there was some back and forth because at the time the designer wanted to put the trail right up against the roadway, and we didn't agree with that. So basically, I believe what we have now is a compromise that it's basically we took the difference. It's basically it's still away from the roadway, but not on private property, and that's where we're at. So if you want to take a look at the plans, just let me know and I can email them to you.
This email to the whole committee.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would like one, please.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good discussion on that. Going to other business, do we have any committee reports? Anybody do anything fun or anything to talk about or? No. Okay, and then agenda items for March 2023. This is something that we're trying to do a better job at, to get those to the chair prior to, crunch time to get the agenda out.
When is the deadline for the agenda?
It's moving. So Melissa's doing a little bit better. It's the Thursday at 2:00 the week prior to the meeting.
Okay.
So it's 6 days we have.
Yeah.
But it has to be complete. It has to have all the supporting materials. And if she doesn't get it by that time, the rule is that they'll cancel the meeting and you will not be permitted to schedule a special meeting to make up for it. It's something to talk about and consider. Okay, so any other agenda items? We kind of know what we'll be talking about. Then Fred, would you do the honors?
Yeah. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Can I, I'm sorry, just the one thing I didn't get to say.
Oh,
I know
okay.
we want to get out of here, but the one thing on the safe routes to school that, and then we just kind of jumped because we needed Liz to get it. I just
right.
did want to, so in March 1st, I'm joining the BPTS meeting. I've just emailed back and forth with Ed. I'm just going to give them an update on where things stand with our safe routes to school
Great.
map and everything. And I'll check with him, but I just know now that we are approaching spring, just wanted to continue to each month check in on, do we think we're still on track for the flashing beacons for this summer? Are there any updates there
That
at
is,
Alpine Hills?
yeah, so that is the plan right now. That is the current plan. So let me step back. I know this it gets brought up often. So
Yeah.
typically what happens is it was budgeted and what happens typically is we develop a plan and then we fund it and then we build it. And in this case, I went out for a grant. We went out proactively for a grant and we got the money before any design was done at all. So I don't want to have the impression that it's being delayed or anything. It's just that we put it in the budget, but yet we never designed it. And that's typically not how things work. In other agencies, you design it first and then you find the funds and then build it. So that when you go, oh, well, how come they built it so fast? Because they designed it and went through the consensus process. For us, we went out for the grant and we got the grant. And so we are now in the process of design and getting consensus. We have several years to use the grant. However, I don't have the date on top of my head, but the aim right now, because I do have to go to the BPTS to get some kind of consensus, and then it has to go to the council also. And so we're designing, and also there was a bunch of alternatives that we were asked to look at too, moving the intersections and so on. So those things were still moving parts. So we are, the aim is to basically complete design by the end of, by summer, and I'm going to try to go out to bid sometime in the summer to start construction. So, and that is not a hard day because there is still some BPTS and council items. So I can't guarantee that when those things go there, they get approved. So,
Generally speaking, what is the time between going out for bid and when the construction actually commences?
so going out to bid typically is 3 weeks for public bid. And then we are typically a month before we start. And there's a lot of, and I'll explain why. Is because if you set a date, a hard date, prices go up, right? But if you set a looser date, then the cost comes in, potential cost that it comes in
Little average.
could be low, right? Because if it fits into someone's budget. So there's a method there in the public bidding process. So, but that is the aim. The aim is for getting design done this summer and trying to go out to bid this summer. Did I answer that?
You did, but I guess what that says to me then is it is not looking like it will be completed this summer, is what.
Ahead of
Sounds-
the school.
That is
st-
Yeah,
start.
I mean, you have to, I understand the process, but it's just, when we talk about, like, as someone who's been kind of helping own this Safe Routes to School, I do not feel comfortable putting out there, like, here it is, here's what, this is the Safe Route to School, because that's exactly, like, we live right up there, and I'm not having my kid go bike across that currently. So it's just that, that's a piece of our, I know we're trails, but that's a piece of the Safe Route to School. And, I think in our head, we're thinking, hopeful that we'll get this put out there and sharing with the community before the fall. And that's just a big piece that, to me, I don't agree with the word safe. So, I'm saying I don't agree with the word
Until-
safe.
until-
right now on
until
that
the
map,
beacon.
Until
Until
those
the beacon.
beacons are in. So that's the only, we were hoping those things were aligned, and was our understanding, was we kept hearing, yep, the goal is my understanding was the goal was to have it completed by summer, but that's seeming like a stretch at the moment. And I just was, with that design consensus piece, seems to be saying where we are, and is there anything to push that so it doesn't take 4 more months? And maybe I don't understand enough just how complicated that design piece is. but-
Yeah, well, certainly we're moving, we are making progress. We are moving along. And I hear what the community is saying.
Is there a way that we could just follow up and say, like, okay, work back plan, if our goal is to have these lights in place by what, a week before school
Yeah, like
starts?
if
so that
it's
we
by
can
the end of
communicate,
August.
Like,
Right.
what would it take us to get there?
Yeah, I just think a bit more realistic, by this date, by this date, by this date, and to Fred's point, working backwards, like, let's say the goal is by August 31st, they're installed. And we just referred to how long it takes, right, for each. If we could just start to have a more concrete goal for when the design and consensus is done. I think would just be helpful, because we'll just keep bringing it up every meeting. I'm sorry? June 1st for the design, right, it was throwing out, yeah. Yeah, and I'll bring it up at the BPTS meeting next week too. It sounds like there's something needed from them, so where are they in the process?
What I might suggest there is getting in touch with Ed, either Fred and yourself, or I'd be happy to do it. Just start the ball rolling with Ed ahead of time before the meeting, and then maybe it gets resolved at the meeting. It's pretty good about that kind of stuff. So it's usually easy to get a conversation with them. Happy to help.
I hear what you're saying. But once again, that is the plan, and I'm at this point hesitant to give a solid deadline date right now in public, because if I can't hold it, it's very tough.
I think,
And I disagree with Fred though, like putting at least goal dates, right? And
Let's-
working backwards. I just think-
yeah, I think if we have a working session where we at least see, is it realistic to get by this work back date? What would it take? What are the barriers? And we all have a plan. I don't think we're committing you to a specific date at this moment on this meeting. But let's commit to have a meeting about the plan and seeing what we can do to hit the goal. Because then if we don't, then we're gonna have to have a contingency plan for Safe Routes to School, because we're holding up all of this work because of this one blocker. And so, what can we do there? Because I think to your point, a lot of folks wouldn't feel that crossing.
Yeah.
I'm
It's just
with
gonna-
you. I
it's
would,
gonna
I would.
bring-
provide
It's
it.
gonna bring back up that
Yeah.
people are gonna ask to stay on
Exactly.
Alpine Trail, which
Exactly.
we currently say they can't,
So-
but that's safer than crossing.
So I think we have some work that we will do, and get in touch with Ed on this.
Yeah, I just want to, I mean, these are enhancements, and I mean, we looked at 15 intersections. I think right away we did 9. And I'm not here to, I don't think anyone's saying they're not safe. Safety is, we can go into based on accident rate, history, and so on. No, I'm not saying no one's saying it's not safe to use it right now. And I think I hear something saying that's unsafe to use it now potentially. And I'm saying there is no accident history, unfortunately, that backs that.
I think what you're hearing is from parents, they wouldn't be comfortable sending their children en masse too, by the way, right?
Yes.
It would be a unique situation where you're sending a bunch of kids there at a time of day when, people maybe aren't expecting them. And so I don't think we're necessarily pushing you on saying that that's not safe, but I think you're hearing there's discomfort from at least three parents in the
And we
community.
just don't currently even allow our kids to do that because it doesn't exist, because, right? So it's not even happening. And we're about to put something out that's saying this is what you should be doing. And that doesn't feel,
And I heard you were saying, and we do take things, we do try to do things expeditiously, to do things seriously, like we went out and did the 9 intersections out of 15 right away. So some of these design things take time.
I second the motion.
Second the motion to dismiss, all in
All in
favor?
favor? Help start.
All right. 11:20.
Good meeting.
All right,
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Shut down.
thanks, Joe.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Condolences, maybe?